Quantum manifestation works backwards, and nobody realizes it. Most people assume manifestation is a journey toward something in front of them, as if life were a straight road leading from where they are now to what they desire. They imagine their future waiting somewhere ahead, distant and inactive, hoping that with enough intention, visualization, or effort, they can eventually reach it. But the quantum field does not operate in straight lines, and the universe does not wait for you at the end of a timeline. Your future is not ahead of you, it's behind you, beneath you, inside you. A frequency already active, waiting for alignment, not pursuit. This is why so many people feel like they're walking toward their dreams while simultaneously being pulled backward by something they can't quite see. They're manifesting forward while the universe is responding backward, and the mismatch creates struggle, delay, and confusion. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, trying to change your reflection by manipulating the image on the glass. No matter how intensely you concentrate on the mirror, nothing changes. The reflection shifts only when you shift, the source, not the projection. Manifestation works the same way. The reality you experience is not formed by the direction you look, but by the direction your internal state is broadcasting. If your emotions, beliefs, and nervous system are anchored in the past, then your future is simply a replay of what your body already knows. This creates the illusion that life moves forward, when in truth, life is looping back. The reflection shows you yesterday, even when your mind is fixated on tomorrow. Quantum physics has been hinting at this for decades. In the double-slit experiment, particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed, suggesting that the act of observation, not the future arrangement of matter, is what organizes the outcome. The collapse doesn't start from the end result and move backward. It begins with the observer's internal state and extends outward. In other words, the effect is chosen before the cause. The result exists in potential before the action is taken. This means manifestation does not follow the linear path you believe it does. The future is not something you walk toward. The future is something that responds to who you are being right now. Think about how often people say, "I'm trying to get there," "I'm moving toward my goals," or "I'm aligning with my future." These phrases hold an embedded assumption that the life you desire is somewhere outside yourself, somewhere ahead of you. But if the quantum field contains every version of you simultaneously, then the future self you want to become isn't waiting on a distant horizon. It's vibrating as a frequency that your body may or may not be able to tune into. Manifestation doesn't happen when you reach the future. It happens when the future recognizes you. And recognition only occurs when your internal state emits a frequency that matches the timeline you claim to want. Here is the paradox that flips everything. The future doesn't form as a result of your actions. Your actions are the echo of the future you've already chosen energetically. This is why some people take small steps and see massive results, while others take massive steps and see nothing. The universe doesn't reward effort. It mirrors coherence. And coherence is not built in the future. It is built in the present moment. In the internal landscape the universe reads before it arranges your reality. You don't move toward your desires. Your desires move toward the version of you whose signal matches them. This is where spirituality and science converge. Neville Goddard taught that your assumption creates your reality, not your striving. Joe Dispenza explains that your body must become the emotional version of the future before the future can materialize. Quantum physics states that the observer collapses probability, not the intention alone. These teachings all point to the same truth. Manifestation works backward. The inner state collapses the timeline you will experience. You do not create the future from movement, you create it from embodiment. Try to imagine the universe as a vast field of frequencies, each one representing a different timeline. You don't walk into a timeline, you tune into it. And once the tuning is precise enough, the timeline becomes your lived experience. Most people tune into their past without realizing it. Their thoughts say, "I'm ready for change." But their nervous system says, "I only understand what I already survived." Their hopes pull forward, but their emotions pull backward. And the field listens to the louder signal, the more coherent vibration, the state that feels like home, even if that home is built from old pain. This is what creates the experience of moving in reverse without understanding why nothing seems to shift. The most disorienting part is that the mind believes it's moving forward because intention feels like progress. But the universe does not respond to intention. It responds to identity. And identity is encoded in emotion, not thought. When your emotional baseline remains tied to your history, you are manifesting from the past even when you are dreaming about the future. That internal backward-facing signal is so strong that it can override your desires and replace them with repetition disguised as fate. But something begins to open when you realize this. You stop trying to chase outcomes and start examining the internal state that keeps projecting the same reality. You stop asking, "How do I get there?" and start asking, "Who am I broadcasting right now?" You stop thinking of manifestation as a destination and begin to see it as a mirror, showing you exactly what signal you've been transmitting without realizing it. And once you see the mirror clearly, you stop arguing with the reflection and start shaping the source. This is where everything begins to change, not by pushing forward, but by turning inward. The moment you understand that the universe is responding to the emotional remnants of your past, not the intellectual desires of your mind, you gain access to a level of transformation that most people never reach. You stop manifesting forward and start manifesting from within. And when the internal state shifts, the timeline rearranges, not gradually, instantly. Most people think they're sending signals to the universe based on what they want. They picture the life they desire, write it down, visualize it, meditate on it, and assume the field is receiving those intentions as instructions. But the quantum doesn't listen to desire. It listens to familiarity. It listens to whatever emotional frequency your body has practiced the longest. And that frequency is almost always tied to the past, not the future. This means the universe isn't responding to your dreams. It's responding to your emotional history. Your manifestations are not moving toward what you want. They're moving toward what your nervous system believes is normal. Your mind might be reaching forward, but your body is broadcasting backward, and the field mirrors whatever has the strongest charge. Think about this carefully. The emotional imprint of your past has more influence over your timeline than all your positive thoughts combined. Not because the universe is cruel or because you're blocked, but because your biology prioritizes safety over possibility. The nervous system's job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you alive. And alive often means recreating what is familiar, even if that familiar state is filled with scarcity, fear, tension, or self-doubt. So the old emotional patterns become the default setting of your signal. While you think you're manifesting forward, you're actually manifesting backward. From memory, from identity, from emotional residue. Look at your life for a moment. Notice how certain patterns keep repeating. The same kinds of relationships, the same types of financial challenges, the same emotional loops, the same internal battles. These patterns aren't coincidences. They're vibrational echoes of unresolved emotional memory. The quantum field is neutral. It has no preference for success or failure, abundance or scarcity. It simply mirrors the signal it receives. And if the strongest part of your signal is built from the past, the future becomes a replica of what you've already lived. This is why people can have massive dreams yet see small, repetitive results. Their intentions point in one direction, but their frequency points in another. Think about how many times you said you wanted change, but part of you felt the familiar pull of who you used to be. Notice how the body tenses when you try to embody abundance, as if it's preparing for disappointment. Notice how your breath shortens when you imagine a life that feels too big, too free, too different from what your past taught you. That tension is the signal. That resistance is the broadcast. And the quantum field responds to that contraction long before it responds to your goals. Not because your desires are wrong, but because your emotional foundation hasn't shifted yet. You're trying to manifest a new timeline with an old frequency, and the universe can only tune into the channel your body is currently playing. When you deeply understand this, something clicks inside you. You stop blaming yourself for not manifesting fast enough. You stop thinking you're doing something wrong. You realize that nothing was broken. The mechanism was simply misunderstood. Manifestation doesn't begin with desire. It begins with internal coherence. And coherence doesn't come from the future you want. It comes from the emotional state you're willing to release, the state that no longer matches who you're becoming. Once you stop broadcasting the past, the future finally has space to take shape. There's a reason this feels revolutionary. Nobody teaches that manifestation starts by turning your attention away from what you want and toward the emotional signatures that oppose it. The mind insists on looking forward, but the body insists on replaying backward. This is the conflict that keeps people stuck. You can visualize wealth while embodying lack, and the field will choose lack. You can intend love while resonating with abandonment, and the field will mirror abandonment. You can affirm confidence while vibrating with insecurity, and life will reflect insecurity. The universe isn't ignoring you. It's answering the clearest signal available, and clarity almost always comes from the emotional past. The shift begins the moment you realize that the past doesn't need to be healed for the future to change. It simply needs to lose its dominance as your default vibration. That happens when you become more loyal to who you are becoming than who you have been. When the emotional weight of the future self becomes stronger than the emotional memory of the old self. When your nervous system learns that safety doesn't come from repetition, but from alignment. This is the moment when the signal flips direction. Instead of replaying yesterday, you begin broadcasting a frequency that the field has never received from you before. And reality adjusts quickly because the field is designed to respond to novelty the same way your brain is, with creation, not repetition. Before we go deeper, ground this shift in your consciousness. Declare it into the field with intention and clarity, because a spoken choice stabilizes the inner frequency. Type in the comments, "My future leads, not my past." This simple statement anchors your signal forward, not backward. It marks the moment you stop broadcasting from memory and begin broadcasting from possibility. Once you understand how the reverse mechanism has been shaping your life, the path forward becomes clear. You're not here to chase a future timeline. You're here to become the observer that the future timeline recognizes instantly. And when that happens, manifestation stops moving in reverse. It begins flowing toward you like a river meeting the ocean it always belonged to. When someone finally sees that their reality keeps looping because their emotional body is facing backward in time, a new possibility opens, one that doesn't rely on effort, willpower, or hours of visualization. The shift begins the moment you realize that your desired future isn't waiting for you to move closer to it. It's waiting for you to turn toward it internally. Not as a metaphor, but as a biological and energetic reorientation. The nervous system organizes itself around whatever feels most real. For years, the past has held that position. But the moment the future gains more emotional weight than the memory behind you, the entire direction of your timeline reverses. To understand this, imagine for a moment that time isn't a line but a field, a three-dimensional landscape where every potential version of you already exists as a frequency, not a destination. The you who is confident, abundant, peaceful, fulfilled already vibrates as a coherent pattern within the field. That version of you isn't in the future, it's in a different state. The question is not, how do I get there? The real question is, which state am I embodying right now? Because embodiment is what determines direction. Your internal state is a compass, and it points either toward memory or toward possibility. Neuroscience offers a clear explanation. The brain predicts reality based on past patterns because prediction feels safer than uncertainty. This means your body treats the past as the most reliable reference point. If you don't intervene consciously, the nervous system will continue projecting old emotions into your present, shaping your next reality from the wrong temporal direction. The key is to introduce a new reference point powerful enough to override the automatic pull of history. And that reference point is the emotional signature of your future self. This is where the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes far more profound than classic teachings suggest. It's not about pretending you already have what you want. It's about giving your nervous system a new emotional anchor, so the body stops clinging to outdated versions of you. When the emotion of the future becomes familiar, truly familiar, the body starts treating it as the new baseline. That's when embodiment replaces memory. And once embodiment becomes stronger than memory, your timeline flips direction. You stop manifesting backward and begin radiating forward. Think of identity as a gravitational field. Wherever your sense of self settles, your reality collapses around it. The old identity carries the weight of past experience, and that weight pulls your awareness backward. But the future identity carries the weight of coherence, expansion, clarity. When you embody that frequency, even for a few seconds, the gravitational pull shifts. Your awareness begins orienting toward the version of you that already lives the life you desire. It's that shift in orientation, not effort, that causes manifestation to accelerate. Here's the nuance most teachings overlook. Embodiment isn't a technique. It's a physiological event. When you embody a future state, the brain reorganizes its predictive patterns. Neurons fire in new sequences, creating memories of experiences that haven't physically happened yet. The heart shifts into coherent rhythms. The vagus nerve signals safety rather than threat. The emotional chemistry of the body adjusts. In that moment, the internal landscape updates, and the field responds instantly to that update, because the field mirrors internal states as not external efforts. But embodiment cannot be forced. When you try to fake an elevated state, the body contracts. The nervous system senses the mismatch between thought and feeling, creating internal friction. That friction reinforces the past. True embodiment begins with creating enough inner space for the future emotion to land naturally. That might mean slowing your breath, relaxing your jaw, dropping your shoulders, letting the body soften just enough to stop gripping the familiar emotional pattern. Once the contraction loosens, there is room for a new emotional signature to take root. Here's where the reversal of time becomes tangible. The moment the body receives a signal that feels expansive, open, grounded, or aligned, the future identity activates, not mentally, energetically. The shift is subtle at first, a sense of ease where tension once lived, a calm certainty replacing anxious effort, an unexpected surge of clarity in a situation that felt complicated 5 minutes earlier. These are signs that the future self-frequency is beginning to pull you forward. Not because you're thinking about it, but because you're resonating with it. Resonance is the mechanism that flips timelines. Imagine a river that has always flowed in one direction, carrying you along with memories, habits, and conditioned emotions. Embodiment is the moment when the current reverses. You stop swimming upstream toward your dream life, and instead feel the flow moving beneath you, guiding you into alignment with little resistance. Things that once felt distant begin to feel inevitable. Situations that once felt heavy lose their weight. You're no longer pushing against your reality. Your reality is responding to you before you take a single physical step. This is why quantum manifestation appears magical to those who don't understand the mechanics. When the internal state becomes more loyal to the future than to the past, the field reorganizes without delay. Opportunities emerge not because you hunted them, but because your new signal made them visible. Relationships shift because your frequency no longer matches the dynamics that once held you. Solutions appear because coherence sharpens your perception. Synchronicities accelerate because the new timeline is locking into place. The beautiful part is that you don't need to maintain this state all day. A few genuine moments of alignment, repeated consistently, rewrite the internal compass. The nervous system slowly stops referencing the past and begins referencing the version of you that already embodies clarity, abundance, or love. And once that internal compass reorients, your reality has no choice but to follow. The observer changes, the signal changes, the timeline changes. When this clicks, the entire pursuit of manifestation becomes unnecessary. You're not chasing outcomes anymore. You're stepping into a stream that was flowing toward you the whole time. You just had to turn in the right direction. There comes a point in this process when the shift stops feeling like something you are trying to achieve and begins feeling like something that is happening through you. Not forced, not scripted, not pushed into existence. It feels as if the future you've been reaching for suddenly steps forward and recognizes you. Your internal world becomes so aligned, so coherent, that external reality doesn't wait for you to act. It starts responding before you move. This is the unmistakable moment when the future stops being a vision and becomes a gravitational force. Instead of chasing outcomes, you feel yourself being pulled toward them by an identity that finally matches what you've been calling in. Everything changes when the body stops expecting the past and begins expecting the future. The nervous system, which once searched your environment for familiar threats, starts scanning for coherence instead. Your mind stops looping old narratives. Your emotions stabilize into a softer, more grounded register. The internal noise quiets. You begin sensing a subtle but steady momentum carrying you, not forward, but inward, into a deeper alignment with who you truly are. This is not motivation. This is entrainment. Your field is syncing itself with a timeline that has always been waiting for your signal to become clear enough to lock onto it. You notice the shift first in small ways. Conversations feel different, as if you're speaking from a higher vantage point. Tasks that once drained you become unusually easy. Opportunities show up without the friction you used to expect. People mirror back a version of you that feels more authentic, more centered, more whole. You're no longer acting as the old character trying to reach a better life. You're embodying the version of yourself who already belongs to that life. And that identity, stable, grounded, coherent, sends a signal strong enough to reshape the world around you. Reality begins rearranging itself without requiring dramatic action. Your energy field starts filtering out situations that don't match your frequency. You no longer attract the same patterns because the internal architecture that held them in place has dissolved. When you shift your identity, you also shift the probabilities available to you. The field stops offering you timelines that match your past and begins aligning you with timelines that match your new emotional baseline. It's not destiny, and it's not luck. It's physics. A coherent signal generates a coherent environment. And when you hold that signal with consistency, the environment adapts. You can feel this shift physically. There's a calmness that wasn't there before, a sense of soft expansion in the chest, a clarity that arrives without force. You start moving from a deeper intelligence, not the mind, not the emotions, but something beneath both, a sense of inner knowing that guides your actions without hesitation. This is the point where the future identity stops being a concept in your imagination and becomes the operating system of your life. You don't have to remember to act like the person you want to become. The behavior emerges naturally because your internal frequency has already crossed the threshold where the future feels more real than the past. Once this happens, your environment responds with precision. Doors open that you never noticed before. People show up at the exact moment your energy aligns. Conversations, opportunities, and synchronicities unfold with an elegance that feels orchestrated. It's not that the universe suddenly decided to help you. It's that you finally became someone the universe can reflect accurately. When you radiate a clear identity, the field stops sending you mixed experiences. The life you desire begins moving toward you with the same clarity you bring to your internal state. What surprises many people at this stage is how effortless everything becomes. Not effortless in the sense of passivity, but effortless in the sense that actions arise from resonance rather than resistance. You're no longer grinding your way through life or negotiating with old limitations. You're responding to a timeline that is already unfolding. You feel guided, supported, synchronized with something larger than your personal effort. This is the natural outcome of embodying a frequency that no longer belongs to who you were. And here's the deeper truth. Once the future begins pulling you, the journey becomes less about achieving outcomes and more about stabilizing the identity that allows those outcomes to exist. The identity is the manifestation. Everything else is an echo. If you're feeling the pull right now, if something inside you is recognizing itself in these words, then you're already shifting. The signal is updating. The old frequency is dissolving. The new identity is forming. And if you're ready to solidify this transformation, to understand the mechanics of coherence, embodiment, vibrational direction, identity repatterning, and timeline alignment at a level that becomes second nature, then you're ready for the next step of this journey. Everything you need to stabilize this new frequency is inside the Awaken Your Quantum Power ebook, along with its practical companion. Together, they guide you through the exact inner architecture that makes quantum manifestation effortless and automatic. You'll find the link waiting for you in the pinned comment. Follow that pull. Your future is already reaching for you. This is your moment to meet it.